Welcome to the Scale Model Podcast. In this podcast, we aim to entertain, inform, and promote the hobby of scale model kit building with interviews, reviews, and news about the hobby. The Scale Model Podcast is currently recorded bi-weekly and is available where your favorite podcasts are found, including iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher, as well as our website at www.scalemodelpodcast.com. Let us know if you have any comments or suggestions at scalemodelpodcast@gmail.com or at our Facebook page at facebook.com/scalemodelpodcast. We also publish extra video content on our YouTube channel, and we also have a Patreon page at patreon.com/scalemodelpodcast. The money raised will be used to help offset web hosting and other costs. As the podcast grows, we hope to introduce giveaway and other bonuses to our Patreon supporters as a thank you for supporting the Scale Model Podcast. So, welcome to episode 28, sponsored by Gundam Models. My name is Stuart Clark, and once again, we're deep in the recesses of Goodman Heavy Industries. Is that what you're calling it now? Goodman Heavy Industries?
GHI?
GHI, there we go. Why not? With our good friend Anthony Goodman. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm great. How are you doing tonight, Stu?
Not bad, not bad. I just finished a very, very busy month.
You did.
Where
That's
I worked,
intense.
I think I worked 21 days straight. Something crazy like that. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's a holiday
Trooper.
week. It's a holiday Monday here in Canada.
It
we
is.
call it late Labor Day. So I'm enjoying that. I've also actually got 2 weeks off before I start my next contract. So that's kind of that's kind of nice to know. So looking forward to that. So lots of items to talk about. But first of all, we want to give a shout out to our latest Patreon supporter, Mike Basquette. Hopefully I'm not slaughtering that name, but if I am, it would be tradition.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Actually, I had a nice email from Mike as well with some different ideas we're going to be looking at. As
some
always,
interesting stuff.
We love having feedback. So don't forget, folks, if you have some feedback for us, feel free to reach out. scalemodelpodcast@gmail.com.
Thanks to all the Patreon supporters. We really appreciate it.
We really do.
I think we're using those funds to help keep the show going.
Yes.
But we're definitely got to get some interesting prizes and stuff going on.
No Ferraris have been purchased with the funds.
Not yet.
Not yet. Not ever. Just going to say. Porsche's more my thing. Yeah, no. Okay, so let's get right on to it. So,
what's in the news?
Bunch of stuff. So, Barracuda Studios, they do some really nice detail sets on that. So with all the recent new releases, they got a bunch of new stuff out here. So some P-51D in 48 scale cockpit stencils and placards. Kind of handy since that Edouard P-51 just came out.
I was going to say, this is perfectly timed for that, right?
Timed. And then they've also got a 124 scale RAF ground crew assembling a rocket.
That's pretty sweet.
So that would be good for your Typhoon Mosquito. They also say bow fighter, but I don't think there's a 124th bow fighter yet. Maybe our friends at Airfix know something that we don't.
Yeah.
Maybe.
What about I've heard rumors of the Bowfighter. What about
Bowfighter was a twin engine.
Tamiya?
Great thing. I have a 48 scale one. I bought it as that Tamiya white box. I think there's a 32nd, but it's never been a 24th.
It's a big plane.
It's a big twin engine.
Kit.
Similar. I kind of call it the sister or cousin to the Mosquito.
Yes.
It was mainly used for naval work. So it could carry a torpedo and stuff like that.
That's a weird scaling. Why would they offer that?
124th. Well, I think they're just saying as an example,
Yeah.
because there is 124th RAF aircraft, like Airfix does the.
Yeah.
They have the Typhoon and Mosquito and stuff.
Or maybe
like
if they're smart, they'd scale it down to a bunch of 70-second, 48,
maybe they will eventually.
30-second.
Yeah. So it's funny because later on they say to be posed alongside your Typhoon or Mosquito or as a standalone variant. But again, maybe these guys know something we don't. You never know. If so, you heard it here first. The 132nd scale Mosquito radio upgrade set. And then a bunch of different main wheels for different things, including 32nd Lancaster main wheels to go with your Hong Kong models or your Wingnut wings.
Yeah. Those look nice.
Yeah. Sea Fury, Hawker Sea Fury. That's for the Airfix one.
Complete cockpit set.
Cockpit engine, cowling. You name it. So all sorts of stuff. They make some really nice stuff I've noticed over the years, and I've heard very good things about it. So again, for those of you building some of these, looks like a lot more options out there.
Very cool.
From our good friends at Barracuda. Moving on, Revell has a ton of stuff in September. So let's talk about a couple of things. So first, we're going to talk about, they got all sorts. Revell Germany just keeps kicking the stuff out.
They're making a comeback.
Making a comeback. So the first thing we talk about is everyone's favorite rock band, Kiss. Yes? No? Okay, I got
Sure.
Why not? 132nd, a tour truck from their End of the Road tour. Can you believe 45 years?
Oh, wow.
Wow, they're getting old.
Good for them.
Well, Gene's getting old, and how many times can he get sued? But
Definitely,
anyway, ends their active time on stage during a 3-year world tour. So basically, this is kind of like a truck they'd take around. But
I'm sure they had a fleet of these with all
they
their
would.
gear and
exactly.
lighting and all that
Just
stuff.
one of many. But you've got basically the decal for the side of the latest tour.
That's pretty fun.
This looks pretty funky if you're a fan. They also have a gift set version as well. So, yeah, pretty nice. Not bad at all. I don't have a price yet, but 555 centimeters. That's a good size.
So the scale for our listeners
132nd.
132nd.
Yeah, 102 parts, 552 millimeters. So, that's 2-3 feet.
Wow.
2 feet maybe.
Yeah, that's a
60
a
centimeters.
large model.
Yeah, so that'll be a good size.
Nice.
Again, something good for the shelf, and again comes with the gift set version, glue, paintbrush, and some of the basic colors from their Revell Aquacolor line.
Awesome.
Paint line. Also, the A380 in 1/144th. This is a new livery from Lufthansa. So, Lufthansa's gone with a new livery lately. They've kind of taken a lot of the yellow out of their livery, so you can see that there.
It's a bit plainer, isn't it?
A little bit
I
plainer.
like the splash of
less
color.
yellow. So did I.
And some of the other brands.
Maybe it's cheaper for them or something.
Yeah.
So this is the A380. They've been using it in this scheme since 2018. It's pretty well the largest passenger aircraft in the world. You know the landing gear has 22 wheels.
Wow.
That's a lot of landing
That's
gear.
pretty awesome.
Yep.
I always liked passenger planes.
Oh yeah, yes. This is a twin engine, including 4 Rolls-Royce Trent 900 engines. Quite a nice looking one for the aircraft guys.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Again, 504 millimeters, 555 millimeters for 30 euros. So yeah, it's a big, even in 1/144th. Yeah, you're not going to be seeing a 32nd or 24th of this anytime soon.
Yeah, that's fun though. I'd like to give that a try
Yeah,
sometime.
airliners. There's a bunch of people that are really into it.
Yes. There's always,
out of
and
Japan
they're beautiful.
too, Hasegawa and
I'm always
some of
drawn
those.
to that table when I go to
it's
the
neat.
shows. I never
It's
think
neat
to
how
build
they
one.
do. Yeah,
but
exactly.
It's a really cool subject.
Yeah, it's something I've never done, but yeah, exactly. I know a lot of people like it. Then moving on, this is actually a Matchbox Repop, and I say that because anytime you see something from Revell in 176
scale
with a little display base, it's going to be a Matchbox Repop.
I wonder about this scale, right? Like this is perfect for the people who are doing gaming.
Yep. This is this, and there is a slightly smaller. Some of them was 1/100, but yeah, this was always popular. I built dozens of these Matchbox kits.
Yeah,
They were
but
great.
you built them because they were readily accessible. They were probably very
Easy to
price
build.
friendly for
Yep.
kids.
There is gaming. There is people that do use them for gaming.
I bet you that is taking off right now because my impression is that doing the gaming thing and meeting up and playing on the terrain and
Very
and
much
bringing
a
your
big,
models.
very much a big area. I know
it's a growth
1/100
area.
scale is popular too.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of kits coming out in a slightly smaller scale, which tends to be as well. So, for example, 15 millimeter, the gamer is called. That's 1/100 scale.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So roughly, so you will see that too, but it varies. But yeah, this is this is a nice kit of the Puma, which is an armored car, 69 parts, €8. Nice deal. And again, it comes with a couple of figures, the little display base. As I said, this is probably a 30-year-old. This is a 30-year-old Matchbox Repop, but these are great. I love these. You get a nice little base.
Just nostalgic.
Nostalgia, and they still sell well. So, yeah, they bought up a lot of the Matchbox stuff and AMT stuff ages ago. So that's why they were doing this. Okay, and also a reissue, but as it turns out, a reissue only from 2016, the 1/72nd scale Averill Shackleton MR3. Again, I thought this was an old Matchbox Repop, but no, they did a whole new tooling a couple of years back.
Yeah.
I checked with our friends at ScaleMates, and this just has some additional parts. So again, nice big aircraft, 209 parts, 390 millimeters.
That box art is stunning.
507 millimeters. Very famous anti-reconnaissance aircraft. So this
anti-sub kind of thing? Or,
yes, long T reconnaissance. So basically, 1955, the MR3 was put into service. So you've got, nice...
Now, is it a bare metal finish or is it actually painted like dark sea gray?
That's a dark sea gray. Yeah, they were painted a dark sea gray. The sample shots here look really good. Whoever built the test setup. And it's got like everything, and if you notice the propellers, they were a bi-directional propeller. So there's actually 8 propellers in total.
So one spins one way and the other one is counter.
Yep.
It's very interesting. It must have been new. Was that a new technology for the 50s?
I think so. Unfortunately, my knowledge of the Shackleton is not a lot, and I'm not going to pretend.
Yeah.
But no, you've got basically a couple of decal schemes there. One based in Cornwall, one based in Scotland. But yeah, very attractive aircraft, and I know a lot of people will be interested in this.
I've definitely heard that name come up a lot.
Yeah.
The Shackleton. So yeah, I gotta say, I'm blown away by this. It must be like a drawing, like an artistic rendering of it. This is beautiful.
This is the actual
box
kit.
art.
Someone's done. Oh, the box art. Yes.
The box art is just
the
stunning.
box art's great. Yeah. And then some of the actual kit shots. Someone's done a really nice job.
The demo kit or whatever display kit for the.
Yeah. And then moving on back to airliners, the Embraer 190, again, Lufthansa in the new livery. Mm-hmm. These are kind of like regional carriers. Yeah. This would be a regional airline. So the kind of thing you'd see here from London to Toronto, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. This is actually from Brazil. It's a Brazilian manufacturer who makes this aircraft.
Short haul.
Yeah, short haul. Yeah. Intra-European route. So again, they're just making it available in the brand new livery. Yeah. And then also, we noticed that Hobbylink Japan, they have a new, is it out now? 1/72nd scale patrol boat.
This is a December release.
US. So it's going to be PT from the Second World War, PT 188 or 579. And again, this is also
PT 588 and PT 579 late types.
Yeah, and this is also a brand new tool.
You did check it. It is.
I did check it. Yeah. Because I'm sure modelers of a certain age, like myself, remember building the Revell 1/72nd scale PT 109, and that dates from like '63.
Yeah, that's really,
so. This is also another new tool. So
well, obviously due for new tooling too, right? So that's a December release, and looks like a price for our listeners is $40.99 Canadian.
Canadian, based on the current exchange rates. Yeah, exactly.
So that's coming out. That looks pretty nice. Yeah, there's not much info on that, but we'll see more. But again,
we'll try and get more as it comes.
Yeah.
Okay, Edouard. So as we know, Edouard released this P-51. No one knew about it. No, I'm just kidding. This thing sold out, the Chattanooga Choo Choo, the original one. So that was the first boxing. Now they've actually released a second one. This is the P-51 D5. They're going to count as limited edition. So this one doesn't have on the tailplane, it had a little extension, the Chattanooga Choo Choo one, the first one. Sorry, the added dorsal film. So that was released in August in time for Nationals, and it sold out. Apparently, according to our friends at Modeling News, because I heard the last time that you couldn't get these for love nor money at any distributor. I know our friends at Wheels and Wings tried, and they managed to get lucky with a couple, but apparently Edouard's going to produce more.
Oh, yeah.
But this new one's a slight variation. This one doesn't have the dorsal extension, but you are going to get 5 aircraft and 6 markings. So yeah, that's going to be released in October. It's going to come as a Profit Pack release. So that's going to include, the photo etch, the mash sheet, all that, the full thing from Edouard. And again, as usual, some absolutely gorgeous decal choices here.
Oh yeah, these are stunning.
I love some of these. Yeah, these are just fabulous. So again, that's going to be in October. And then we'll hear more.
Is there a price on the...
Not yet, unless it's at the Edouard site. I'll have a quick peek, but I don't remember seeing one. It'll be similar in price to what that was.
Just with slightly different options, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Very hot item.
Yeah, it was very, very popular when it came out. So
well, it sold out. So the Chattanooga
Choo Choo was a limited run.
Limited one. That was sold out. The show was gone
it sold out. It sold out on the second day. It sold out on the Friday. So the show started Thursday. It sold out on the Friday.
Friday's when the shows get
really
rolling.
Kicks in. Yeah. So and then apparently, again, it sold out from all the distributors, at least in North America.
Yeah.
And I know one of our local shops, Wheels and Wings, posted something about they couldn't get any more. Then they managed to get a couple.
Yeah, of that Chattanooga Choo Choo?
Very, very hard. And apparently, according to our friends here at Modeling News in this posting, they're saying they're hearing that Edouard's going to produce some more of that one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because the demand was so high.
I noticed that these were starting to filter onto like the secondary market,
Oh
like
yeah,
eBay
yeah.
for these
eBay was
double
going
the
to
price.
be, yeah, exactly.
So be patient, it's coming.
Yeah. And like I said, the whole first round has already been sold out, and they have in brackets, and we hear they are making more to fill the need.
Well, yeah, they love that. That's
Very
exciting.
people love the Mustang.
Yeah.
People absolutely love the Mustang. Just like the Spitfire, there's certain ones that people just absolutely love. So we thought we'd let you know about that. Okay, mini art. I just love this because it's typical mini art. Something just wonderfully different. This is a German beer delivery car or a van or whatever you want to call it.
That's fun.
I love it. So this is like pre-war, I think. I just got to look here to be perfectly honest.
30s?
Yeah, in the 30s, very, very popular. It's produced. It's a Mercedes, and until not recently, not produced in 1/35th scale. So they've made a few of these in different things over the years, but this one they've actually made with, again, German beer delivery. So it's got some clear parts, some photo etch. Does it come with beer? That is the question. Yes, it does. Of course it does. It's mini art. So mini art you get a couple of cases with the clear bottles and the brown bottles. 4 boxes of beer included. So yeah, kind of neat. And they got this full suspension, full engine, full radiator. You can basically trick this thing out as much or as little as you want. And it comes with photo etch, lots of clear parts. Bottles and boxes included.
It's kind of fun.
Because mini art does a lot of these accessories anyway, like they'll do for diorama work, so know they're going to do that. But yeah, it's something a little bit fun, and you could have some fun with. And they actually have a couple of different decal schemes. I'm seeing three schemes, 3 different types of breweries. So yeah, very, very popular. So that's kind of cool. So coming soon from our good friends at Mini Art.
Very cool.
Okay, moving on. You want to pronounce this?
Let's see. Okay, so we have items from Zvezda.
Zvezda, there you go. I always thought.
For September release. Let's check it out.
So from Zvezda is a very popular Russian. They produce a lot of different things.
They do. They're all over the map, which is cool. I like
that.
They
produce a lot. So not a lot of detail. This is from their website. They never do a lot on the website, but it's kind of cool. Looks like they're coming out with a new version of the MiG 31B Foxhound. That's an interceptor based on the MiG 25. The Soviet PE-2, that was a very famous dive bomber from the Second World War. They've then got an emergency rescue surface vehicle, the UAZ.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's a common vehicle. It's been around for years.
It's like an ambulance, sort of.
Yeah, it is. They've used different things of that. And the one that I find interesting, this one, the 1/72nd scale, this is the Sukhoi 57. This is Russia's latest 5th-generation fighter. So this is stealth technology. This is like to take on the F-22.
Yeah.
Or the Chinese J-50. Very attractive looking scheme. So, again, I'm sure we'll hear some more about this eventually. But some neat... Well, again, they always have some neat stuff. Again, mostly Russian themed, but that's what they do well. They do a lot of stuff. So you were talking about wargaming before. They do a lot of stuff for wargaming.
Really?
Again, smaller miniatures. They've done army sets.
I didn't know that.
Yep. They're very good with that. All sorts. You can get entire sets of wargaming. Do you remember? I don't know if you remember this, but you remember years ago at Tallery, they still released some. They would make a big box set. So you'd have a couple of armored vehicles, about 100 infantry, a little diorama.
I have seen those.
Similar sort of thing, but this is more for actual wargaming.
Yeah.
So they've released a lot of stuff over the years for that, and they're
we'll
well known in
into
the
that.
figure. They're well known in the figure market.
Yeah.
I'm just looking up here. Yeah. So they've got a Blitzkrieg 1940 starter set. Again, doesn't really give a lot of information. We'll have to go to ScaleMates for that. But yeah, they do some interesting stuff. And again, very unique titles. If you like Russian stuff, they probably make it. Or they have made it, or they will make it.
Now Zvezda, I think, are they Polish or...
They're Russian.
They're
Russian.
from Russia, right?
They're from Russia.
Because I remember they had a number, 1 or 2 years ago, they came out with the Star Destroyer. That from Star Wars.
Yeah, they like some of that. I don't. Again,
and apparently it was a really nice kit.
Apparently it was really.
So I wonder how that came about. The license for that.
Yeah, who knows? But yeah, as far as I know, they are Russian. They do They do a crap load of Russian subjects. Okay, moving on. We're gonna move on to our friends over at Tacom. 1/16 tanks. I've seen a few of these. They're bloody monsters.
Yeah.
If you've seen, we've seen people who've built them, and we have people in
Yeah.
our club. These are more kind of. I could probably, if I was into tanks, I could justify these because these are smaller. So basically, Tacom has released a couple of Japanese tanks. Or sorry, they've released in the past some Japanese tanks, but now they're going to have a Japanese Type 94 tankette, and more importantly for German armor fans, a Panzer One in 1/16 scale. So these are, these are kind of the smaller ones. So if we start with the Panzer One, 1/16 scale, working hatches, moving road wheels and suspension, photo etch and clear parts, 4 marking choices. Again, there's obviously a market for this. So these are some of the very first tanks that were kind of started to be built when the Nazi Party came to power.
Yes.
So 1930, like that. So 1930 started 31. So yeah.
Kind of an interesting. I think I feel like that scale's too big. They almost start to look. I've
But
noticed
some people like it.
people like them, and people like to do the RC thing, like make them move.
Yeah, and there's a lot of big
But
RC ones.
I
Yeah.
feel like once you get to that scale, I think I mentioned this before. They don't look. They look kind of toy-like to me. I don't know what it is about the proportions.
Maybe. I've seen some ones that look absolutely fabulous, but I know what
like
you're saying.
Fully realistic.
Yeah,
It seems
I
like
know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. But again,
there's
people
almost
love
a
that scale.
perception.
Yeah. But you know what? Do you find the same thing? So, for example, the 1/32 scale Hong Kong models Lancaster, when you see those big bombers, do you feel the same thing?
I gotta say, I haven't seen one up close yet.
Okay.
I would really like to.
Yeah. Or like, how about some of the big 124 scale fighters?
No, you know what? I haven't seen the Lank in particular, but I have
Right.
seen our 32nd scale, and they sort of look a little.
It's
I don't
because
know,
it's
it's
because
just
of the
the
sheer
way-
size, maybe.
Well, that's the thing, because nowadays they can take like a CAD, something that's designed in CAD, and it's what it is in 72nd scale or 48 and 32nd and beyond. It should be exactly the
They
same.
can scale it up and down, yeah.
Precisely, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like it doesn't look quite right, and I don't know if it's just me, the way I'm
It's
perceiving
just the
it.
size or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's an interesting point? So
No matter how well the modeler
Yeah, I know what you're
applies the
saying. Yeah,
skills,
interesting.
it still looks like a little bit toy-like. But then you look at the 48, and you're like, oh yeah, like
okay,
it's
so
really
if any of our listeners
dis-
feel the same
detailed.
way, we'd like you to
Yeah.
bounce in on
Is it
that.
just
That's
me?
interesting. Yeah,
I've noticed that with large
I've never
Gundams,
thought
they
about
don't
it
look
that
right.
way. Yeah, do you find the same? So you find anything on like a larger scale?
Yeah, it looks
Interesting.
the proportions of things of vehicles,
Right.
whether it's a robot or a World War II aircraft, they look blocky and weird to me.
Interesting.
But when you're looking at like
The smaller
48
scales,
scale,
yeah.
72nd scale,
Interesting.
like they look almost real
Yeah,
if you
okay.
can sort of
Well,
forget about the
we'd
background.
love the listeners to chime
Yeah.
in. That's an
What do you
excellent
guys
point. We'll have
think?
to make a note of that. We'll make sure when we post the episode, we'll throw that out in the Facebook thing. So they're also building the Chinese Army Type 94 tankette, which is, if you look at the picture, the thing looks like it's already a 1-to-2 model compared to the crewman.
Yeah.
I guess these were tiny again, moving road wheels and suspensions, etc. Special tractor was a tankette. No, it was used by the Imperial Japanese Army. I don't know why it says Chinese on the box art. But anyway,
maybe in China.
maybe I don't know. Well, they were used in China, definitely.
Yeah.
Tankettes were often used as ammunition tractors and general infantry support. They were designed for reconnaissance, not for direct combat. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
So again, a whole little history here behind it. But again, if you're into these sort of things,
It's an interesting period. There obviously tanks were coming onto themselves.
yep.
Into themselves, and they were trying to figure out how to replace the infant or the
Well, it was
the
a
cavalry,
whole,
right? And
because the
tr-
tanks
how
had
to-
first been introduced in World War One.
Yeah.
And they were trying to figure out,
How to best apply them, I
Yeah,
guess, in their
exactly.
strategies and stuff.
But again, it'll be kind of neat to see now that you've got some smaller ones. Because I won't be surprised if there is some people who like the idea of a 1/16 scale, but they just didn't want to deal with the size of the bigger tanks. And if they might like the smaller one.
This might make more sense because the subject is so tiny. Like it
That's
had a
what I'm saying.
one-person crew.
That's what I kind of like.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's a
with what
smaller.
you're saying.
Both of the tanks, the Panzer one and this one, were more reconnaissance. They're smaller vehicles.
Yeah. I'll
Two-man
have
crew.
more of a look the next show that we attend.
Definitely. Okay, Trumpeter. A couple of September 2019 releases. Again, I like this one they have. Airport firefighting vehicle. This again looks like something you'd see out of Russia. And again, one of the things you could definitely do a sci-fi bent on. So yeah, that looks kind of cool. 1/35th scale. Yeah, it is Russian. The Maz 7310. You can tell it's Russian. Just look at the thing. You know, it may have a water tank in the back, but you could throw a Scud missile on that and pretty well have the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Then we have a Russian Ural truck in 1/35th scale. They're coming out with this will be interesting, the big Junkers Ju-87 Stuka in 1/24 scale. Airfix has built a 1/24th one before, and I think the Trumpeter's done it before. And then I think we previously talked about the JF Kennedy coming out in 1/700 scale. And then all the other items are some of the smaller fighters for their 1/350th scale Navy World War II aircraft carriers. These will be the add-ons for that.
Yeah. I wonder how those are.
They're actually pretty good. I've come
a long way.
I've got one of the ones, was it 350s or 700 of their F-18s Hornets, and they're actually pretty detailed.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Like, I imagine they've come a long way,
They've come
especially
a long
with
way,
3D
yeah.
printing and
Like
stuff.
these ones, especially, I think these ones I had were 700, and I think the 350th, you get separate canopies. Like it's.
Oh, wowza! And I know.
Tiny
Listening to our good friend Ian on the bench talk about building for the Shokaku build.
Yeah, exactly.
All the
in
350th,
would have been Trumpeter's always had a lot of that
driven.
stuff. So
yeah.
So
I would look at that scale of model building never appealed to me because I thought there's no way you can make any of that stuff look any good. But clearly I'm wrong. Like it's a
350. Yeah, 350 you can do a lot.
Yeah.
The guys who can do 700 and
make it
smaller,
look convincing or
my hat's
like,
off to them because I go blind. I have enough problem with
ships are cool though. I've sort of decided I would never build ships kind of with that thing. Like it'll never be something
I
worth
do have
looking
a one.
at,
I do have a Tamiya 1/350th. I got 1/350th. Missouri in the late 80s configurations. It's got the helipad with the helicopter and all that.
Super carrier style.
At some point, well, it's the battleship. So at some point, I will build that.
Missouri.
Yeah, it's the Missouri. It's the but it's one of the Tamiya big 350s.
Cool.
At some point, I'll build it.
Yeah.
It's one
I
got it
build
for a great deal. Yeah. Well, they also got, like I said, they got the 1/200th carriers. Some ships in 1/200, which again, the nice thing about ships is they're narrow, right?
Yes.
So it's easier to fit on a shelf. Where
it's very
a giant airplane.
Yeah,
where the hell do you put
tougher,
it? Exactly.
Tougher to think about in the future.
Okay, so let's talk about. We have a Gundam here. I see. This is the Wave 135th Armored Trooper.
This is another Votom.
Yeah, tell me about this.
Oh yeah, this caught my eye. So this is by Wave, and they make a variety of stuff. 35th scale Armored Trooper Votoms, Shining Heresy, Burglary Dog.
He looks kind of badass. He's pretty well
equipped.
Isn't
that cool? I saw that. I was like, that's very interesting.
Is he like got skis? Is he?
Yeah, they had these. So this isn't Gundam. It's a different. It's an 80. It's a sort of contemporary of Gundam. It was an 80s animation series. There was a TV show and a lot of OVAs, and they're really quite good. They're very like hard boiled science fiction, war drama stuff. Yeah. But they were smaller, like powered armors,
right?
And they were military, and like the pilot sort of climbs in the chest.
They
had different sort of versions, right? Like based on the function. Right. So this thing has a large like cannon on it.
Oh, I see that. It's got the ammo belt for it.
And it had these sort of like the ski things are, I think, essentially that they have these like roller wheels in the feet, and it would glide across the ground. Okay. That was the idea, right?
To get the high speed,
But this is a kit. So it's a new way. Now, one of the first kits I ever built of animation stuff from Japan was by Wave.
Okay.
And it was probably an 80s vintage kit. And I got it in the early 90s, and it was a Marshy Dog, and it was like an amphibious type one. But this is from an OVA from the 90s called Shining Heresy.
Right.
And I think it's just sort of an attack style.
I like the scale 1/35th. You could really have some
it's great because the pilot sits in the chest.
Yeah,
and
you could do all sorts. You could do diorama possibilities.
Yeah, and that's what I did with mine. I bought some Dragon figures and had the open cockpit, and
awesome. This looks nice. Yeah, I can see definitely why the appeal of this.
And that's an December release, and that's going to be $46.90 Canadian.
That's not bad.
Yeah,
at
that's
all.
a nice
that's
scale.
Like the size of a tank. Yeah. Price of a tank, really.
Well, and that scale's great because you can use all those different little bits and bobs or buy accessory kits. Yeah,
or whatever.
It's great. I love that show. I thought it was really well done, and
cool.
I haven't seen this one in particular, but they're very cool. But yeah, those weird skis. They had the wheels in the feet, and it would sort of skate on the surface. I don't know how practical that'd be in real life, but it looked awesome in the animation.
It looks pretty cool. I can see the use for that. Okay, and then also from Hobbylink Japan, you found a very nice looking. We seem to, between us and our friends on the bench, we seem to talk about M113s a lot.
I love M113s.
I know you and David do.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So this is a new one.
Yeah.
This is So this is going to be. Let me see when this is coming out. This is a 35th scale, IDF M113A1 Nagmash, and that's obviously a
Israeli name for it. Yeah.
From 1973, which
during the war, Yom Kippur. Yeah.
So that's a new release from AVF Club. It's going to be $77.77 Canadian.
So it looks pretty detailed though for what you're getting in there.
Coming out in October 2019. There's some beautiful pictures here. It looks like a lot of those are very
details. Yeah.
They had all that same U.S. equipment, but it was really customized. Right?
The Israelis customized everything.
They did everything.
They do some amazing things they come out with. So how many of these are you and David going to order between the pair of you?
I've never built any Israeli stuff, but
it's an M113, dude.
Yeah.
Unless you lose the headlights again. Just saying.
Now I kind of want to build. What I saw? I saw an interesting photo.
Yeah.
This is always trouble when you see one photo. It was an M113. It was a Canadian one, which definitely appeals to me.
Yep.
And it was like part of I think it was S4. So that's always a protection force or security force.
Yep.
And I don't know. It was in the Congo or somewhere. I was like, now I want to. That's what I'm going to do with my extra M113 kit.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
But this is a very detailed kit. It should be a lot of fun for.
Looks good. Fans of Israeli armor. Yeah. And I see you snuck one more in here.
I snuck one in.
I couldn't resist.
I saw this earlier in the week, and I couldn't remember when we were putting the list together. And then I was like, it was
Hobbylink Japan order stops. So that either means
it's popular. And
it means it's really popular. Why am I not surprised?
They filled as many orders as they can.
Filled in. Sorry, we better tell people what this is so they can get the jokes.
As soon as I remembered, I found it and I popped it back in there. So there's going to be. This is from. I've never heard of this group. Paracel Miniatures.
Okay.
1 to 35th scale toilet bowl, and it's actually the full toilet. The toilet bowl is just the part.
Just the bowl, the tank, the whole thing.
You get the whole.
These guys are out of Vietnam. Made in Vietnam.
Yeah. It says. It's a 100% water closet.
2 resin pieces.
Yeah, and you know what? I gotta have one of these. This would be perfect, like strapped on top of a tank or something kind of armored vehicle.
Again, the 15-year-old of me is coming out here when I say how long before we have weathering suggestions for it. Or
I had to go there.
AK or ammo will come out with a particular
toilet weathering set.
Weathering set.
They have a really weird demo picture.
I did warn you. The 15-year-old of me came out.
There's also a urinal, but that's not as fun as a toilet.
I
would have this strapped on top of the tank.
Yeah, I know you would. But you know what? I'm sure I've seen stuff like this before.
Yeah, it's just weird and fun. But so this thing is coming out in October release, and what did it say? $23.46 Canadian. So I think a resin kit.
Okay, you know what? I had to do it. I went to Skillmates.
It's a resin kit.
I went to Skillmates.
Yeah,
and there is other things. Toilet bowl, mobile toilet.
I see a urinal.
Yep.
I don't like working on urinals, so I'll pass on that one. The urinals are worse. They smell terrible. Everything else I can get used to.
Even the model one smells terrible?
Ugh. They're the grossest thing I've had to work on in the service world.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I can imagine.
No problem.
These are the first. So this isn't the first one we've done, but this looks fairly good.
I think this is fun.
You know
I
what?
don't know if I want to spend $30 on it.
All right, I had to. Okay, just while we're here, and let the laughs continue. Do you know there was a toilet bomb for a Sky Raider? Someone's built a conversion set.
Let me look at that.
Sky Raider toilet bomb, 1 32nd scale. Obviously, there's a story from Vietnam or something.
Sky Raider was that was 60s?
Yeah, that would have been like Vietnam.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, Midway. Yeah, USS Midway 572 toilet bomber. Everything you would need.
That's fun.
Oh, how about a 1/12 scale squat toilet? Modern toilet.
So an Asian style toilet?
I guess. Yeah, toilet open version. And it's a new tool. Look.
Fun.
There's one from Plus Model. They've even got the wooden seat.
The wooden seat.
I love it. I love it. Okay, that's enough of my 15-year-old coming out.
I think it's fun.
I think it's cool.
Like
I think it's
goofy
cool.
things or
Yeah, why
odd
not?
things are.
That's what
and
makes it
you
fun.
do see like there's always pictures from World War II of tanks rolling with like the weirdest stuff
weirdest
on them,
crap
right?
on 'em, yeah.
Like that little souvenirs. There's that one with like the weird statue.
Yeah.
That's probably a Hitler
Yeah.
maquette,
Yeah,
right?
or
And they
something.
put like the beret on it.
Yeah,
It's like strapped to the front of the Sherman,
Exactly.
rolling
You know.
through on like on the
All the
part of
stuff
the liberation.
all the
Europe.
stuff that was strapped on Oddball Sherman.
Yeah.
Oddball Sherman from Kelly's Heroes.
Okay, right?
You know,
Yeah.
there's wine, a little bit of wine, a little bit of cheese.
And that's based on like real, inspired by real,
Exactly.
they're picking up stuff
Exactly.
left. I know my granddad came back with all kinds of weird stuff.
Oh, you never know what you'd find back
so
then.
all the guys were interested in picking up, like, I'm
yeah,
sure, like,
yeah.
they call them souvenirs, right?
Yeah. There was all the stories about some of the ships that would come back. Someone would spread a rumor that they're going to be all confiscated by customs. So probably outside of harbors in most Allied countries, there's probably hundreds of German Lugers and guns and that rusting.
I think my grandfather brought back an armband.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The swastika armband,
Yeah.
and I think a Luger.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't know what happened to it, and then he brought back the periscope from the Staghound that he drove.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
it's like I don't know how he got it out or why he had it, but it was my dad had it. I don't know what happened to
cool.
it, but it was
cool.
just a bizarre thing to look at.
Awesome. That's
And
awesome. See, that's
maybe a
history.
flag, and I think it creeped my dad out, and he got rid of it.
Yeah, that's all right.
But
All right,
just
cool.
things they pick up.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. We got scale mates. They're hot kits. So look at all the stuff we've been talking about are here.
It's like represcient.
I tell you.
Omniscient.
So, of course, the Edward 148 scale P51, the Tamiya P38.
That's such a cool plane.
That
right?
Easy 8 Sherman from Rye Field Models is very popular.
Yeah.
Here's that Panzer one from Tacom.
The 1/16 scale.
Yep, the Supermarine Spitfire Mark 1 from Tamiya, still doing well. The Beer Wagon.
Wagon.
Yep. Now the other one here's some more. Looks like we got a good image now of the Fokker DR1 late from Wingnut Wings, coming out in 2020. They announced that at National.
Have we chatted about that?
We chatted about it very,
little bit?
very briefly because it was announced at Nats. We haven't seen much more. I haven't checked lately on the Wingnut
We'll talk
Wings
more
site.
about that. 'cause
Yeah, that's going to be very.
These are very
popular.
interesting subjects because you got all that fabric
This is
and
one.
canvas to model.
Well, this is one they hadn't made before, so people were kind of waiting for this.
Like,
So
has
they
there
made two
hasn't been
variations.
one since
There hasn't been one from
Ravel or
Wingnut.
whatever,
Yeah,
right?
and that was a crappy kit. This one,
I
it's
built that as a kid.
yeah, you know from Wingnut, it's going to be
It's
quite
going to
good.
be mint.
Yeah. So yeah, quite a few of our normal ones. Oh, look, we have the AMK Super Tomcat there. It's finally out. Apparently, the rumors are true.
It's good.
Apparently, well,
We should chat about that.
we'll have
too.
to chat about it once I see some more reviews. It's being released. I haven't actually seen it
Yeah, I
in
haven't
people's
seen anything,
hands
but we'll
yet.
have to chat about it.
I
for
know it's
sure.
coming out with a lot of criticism because it was very late. There was a lot of promises for years.
Can't go back in time.
I know. But I'm just saying there was a lot of promises made and pre-orders made, and there's some cases where some people put pre-orders in with their local hobby shop,
and then they get
and then their
burned.
hobby shop went out of business.
Well, that sucks.
So stuff like that.
That's not cool.
Ming has an F-35A Lightning II from
I like-
148th from the Royal Netherlands Air Force.
Oh, very nice.
That looks nice.
I like the Japanese lav.
Yeah.
That's something I would build.
Yep, I could see
And that
doing
that one came out a couple 10 years ago, but they have a new changed parts version.
Yeah, so a lot of good
Special
stuff
deal.
coming out. So anyway, that's as normal. That's what's in the hot kits. So all sorts of hot kits coming out.
Hot
So,
stuff and the hot kits.
Hot stuff. Okay, now we're going to move on. We're going to talk a bit about those super sanding blocks.
Awesome.
So
yeah.
I know our good friends at On the Bench. So first of all, if
Yes.
you want to listen to another podcast, check them out. Our good friends from Down Under.
A new episode just dropped.
Just dropped, and I know David ordered a set. The
He
show
did.
host
Yeah.
set.
Thank you, Dave.
And he's been saying very nice things about it. He's very pleased with them.
Wonderful. I know he had a chance to use them and
Had a
he
chance
seems
to
be
use
enjoying
them, and yeah, exactly. And there's some really good stuff. So why don't we, for those, I can't believe there's someone in the world who hasn't heard of super sanding blocks, but just in case, why don't you briefly describe again what they are?
Sure, yeah. So what the boys are liking about them and what they're meant to do is when you have a soft, a flexible, a stick or a block of wood, things that have give, then you lose a little bit of control when you're actually trying to sand away your surface.
And loss of control is a bad thing.
Yeah,
let's just point that out.
We're all about precision, right?
Exactly.
So now they have their place, those different kind of tools, and I still use all those tools. But the Super Sand Block advantage is they're hard, they're rigid, they don't have any give to them. And when you want to plane something, you get to plane it perfectly, and you get to feel the positive contact, so you know exactly how much that you're sanding and where you're sanding.
Right.
So that's the beauty of them, and they're going to give you some control over your projects that you just can't get in any other format.
Awesome.
So it's a real staple for your tool bench.
Cool. So definitely check them out, and we thank them for their support of the podcast.
So you can check them out on goodmanmodels.com. You can buy them directly from me. You can also go to section8hobbies.com and they do mail order, and they have a wonderful shop in Buffalo. You can go to Wheels and Wings in Toronto, and they do the same things with having a bricks and mortar store that's really cool, or mail order.
And you can also get singles there.
Yep, you can get singles as well, even from my site, and you can even check out FlexiFile and get all kinds of sweet tools as well as
all sorts of sweet tools from them as well.
Super sanding blocks.
So now we've got an interview. This is going to be another long show, but you guys seem to like that. So we had a couple of weeks ago, we had a good chance to talk with John Moscato. And he is, how would you describe John in about a paragraph? Or less than a couple of lines?
Let me say, he's a master modeler.
Right.
So what John has been doing is he is the guy creating the master model for some low run resin garage kits.
Right.
So I think he started out doing some design stuff, and I think he has an artist background as well. And then he was making models of subjects from Macross that were like there was no kit.
Right.
Or the kits were so old and just really, they didn't look right. They were hard to build, and he made his own that looked right, and he was using his artistic eye to make them look right, and that they were quality built, and his models are just fantastic.
Fantastic indeed. So okay, so we're gonna play that interview now. It was a really good interview.
A lot of fun.
So here we go. Welcome back to the interview section of the Scale Model Podcast. And today we've got another great interview. Anthony, take it away.
Okay. Hi there, guys and listeners. Tonight we are lucky to have John Moscato with us. He is a really cool designer, model maker, and illustrator from Montreal, Canada in the Great White North. His first foray into the science fiction genre came when he worked for Janus Publications and DreamPod 9, and that was a freelance gig that he earned while he was still a wee lad in college. During this time, he also worked as an illustrator and mecha designer for various role-playing games and publications, and is perhaps best remembered for mecha design on the Jovian Chronicles from '93 and Heavy Gear from 1994.
I remember both of those. You were
yes, a wee lad. I was, yeah. And after a brief stint as a film prop builder for Studio 14, he went on to serve as art director and toy designer for WowWee, which is a Montreal-based toy company that operated from 95 to 97. So he went on to work as a freelance illustrator and model maker from July of 97 onwards, and he produced a lot of industrial design mock-ups and models for various contractors. In fall of 2004, he partnered up with Robert Watson on the production of his first official garage kit. And this is how I know John.
Okay.
And initially marketed under the Samurai Monkey banner. And I have a couple of those in my closet.
He is
very coveted. Yes. And he finally established his own brand, the Moscato Hobby Models brand, which continues to this day and is doing all kinds of cool stuff. So welcome to the show, John.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So we'll have to say right out of the gate, Anthony is a huge fanboy. So as we were saying pre-show, we're going to try and make sure he doesn't slobber on the mic or anything.
Yeah. Yes.
So Anthony, I'm gonna because you are the fanboy, you get the first question.
We'll get started off. So I actually have a copy of John's. John, you were the masterer for the atmospheric booster from Macross. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then also you were the master model maker for the Cat's Eye Recon plane from the same series.
Also correct.
I have those kits. They're so gorgeous. I'm very excited to build them, and they're sitting on my shelf.
You got to build them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get them out of the stash, start building.
Yeah, so we're gonna have an interesting chat tonight with John, and our first kind of question we came up for is and you actually answered that fairly well in the bio that you provided for us about getting into the hobby, and I'm assuming that you are a big Macross fan. So can you talk a little bit, maybe your first interest when you're starting out in the hobby?
Well, my first exposure to model kits had nothing to do with Japanese animation. It was actually Star Wars.
Okay.
And I got my first plastic model when I was, I think it was about 6 years old. I just had my tonsils out, and I was recuperating. And I guess my parents wanted to find something to keep me busy. And woe is them, they go out and buy me a model kit. And little did they know, they just set off a chain reaction that has endured and continues to endure to this day.
Wow, that's awesome. When did you sort of come across like Japanese animation models, Macross, for example, or?
Well, my first real exposure to Japanese animation was actually UFO robot Grendizer.
Okay.
That was, I think, in 1978.
Yes, yeah, definitely a classic 70s series, right? And that was shown, I think, in North American TV channels, right? And that's probably where you saw it?
Well, I don't know if it was shown all over North America, but in Quebec, because Dynamic had struck a deal with a French company, French as in France.
Yeah.
And so they dubbed Space Pirate Captain Harlock and UFO Robot Grendizer into French. And so we had those, and that used to play on Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
I was introduced to that. I was like, whoa, what is this? Because Japanese animation has a very different style from anything that had been done.
Exactly.
That I had been exposed to, especially at that time.
Yes. Yeah, I had that same sort of epiphany as a youngster.
So yeah, okay, good. So let's talk about a little bit about what goes into making an original pattern, and can you tell us a brief bit about the process you do, like from the time you think about something to you start designing it?
Well, it really all depends on what the project is, because if I'm designing, let's say, a car bumper, as opposed to, let's say, a mecha robot, it's sort of a different procedure because you have to think about what material will this be made out of,
Right?
what kind of molds will I need to use, what kind of tolerances are necessary, because if you're doing, let's say, something like a car bumper that's like 5 feet across, and you don't take into account shrinkage of A, the mold, and B, the material that you produce it in, you could end up being pretty far off.
Yep. Yes.
So things are very different. And I try to think in advance what materials I'm going to use. And the good thing with a garage kit is that most of the materials are fairly similar. So even if there is shrinkage, the shrinkage rate is pretty uniform across the board.
Okay. So you can sort of account for it in the design?
You can account for it, and even if there is a little bit, it's usually not a big deal because it's not that I don't want to be precise, but if your mecha robot is supposed to be, let's say, 18.2 centimeters, and it ends up being 18.3, I don't think anybody's going to throw a fit over that.
No, I think especially with science fiction, right? There's a little bit of leeway, especially when like the subjects are they can be so esoteric that you're just happy to have something to work on. But yeah, I mean the way I see I've inspected your kits pretty closely, and they look really good. Like proportion wise, I find it's always about capturing proportions when it's the science fiction kind of genre, right?
Well, that's how I like to approach it, and thank you for the kind words, because a lot of times you're never sure how something is going to turn out. But
yeah,
I always base myself on fan reaction and how they're going to.
Yeah.
Well,
I show the masters.
I'll say, yeah, no, Anthony pointed these out particularly because he knew I always had a kind of a bit of an interest with, some of the anime and stuff like that. So he was always one of the first ones he pointed out to me was that booster kit.
Yeah,
with
that's a
with the
beauty.
Valkyrie, and that just looks so out of hand. At first, I always had kind of an issue. It just seems so outlandish, and I went, but that's the point. It's great. It looks awesome.
Yeah.
So just a little aside, I'm going to go slightly off track. So for that specific booster kit, how did the process go for that? Like, how does, were you approached, or what?
I guess how did you decide
Yeah.
to pick that? Because that's that shows up in one episode, just like in the background where they shoot a
Right.
couple
Oh, yeah,
ships.
exactly.
They're evacuating the base and
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
gonna reform up in the in the orbit.
Yeah. So
But
just kind of go
notice
through
with
that.
a lot of my kits, a lot of the subject matter ends up being something that's shown for like 2 seconds on screen. If you're
Yes. Yeah. But sometimes that's the best stuff, right? You see something and you're like, "What is that? That's really interesting," and then you don't see it again.
Well, I think that's kind of the raison d'être for garage kits, is that it's not worthwhile for a big company to go in and tool molds, that'll cost, several $100,000 for something that's seen, for a couple seconds in one episode that maybe 100 fans would want in total.
Yeah.
So that really opened the door for, people who make garage kits, all these esoteric designs that are
Absolutely.
barely ever seen, but that, gather some of the most ardent fans.
Yeah.
And it gives them a chance to actually have something in three-dimensional form that otherwise would not exist.
So good. That's great. Can we ask you a little bit about is your latest release the Pinky Crab?
My latest release is the 1/500 scale party wagon and school bus.
Oh, that's right. Yes, that looks really cool, by the way. So maybe that's probably the freshest in your mind. So can you walk us through a little bit, maybe the planning, concept phase, and then releasing that? How you're making out with your releases? Are you just doing it through your website, or do you have any other types of promotion going on?
Well, I basically just deal predominantly through Facebook, a little bit of Instagram, and of course Macross World, the spiritual home
Yes.
of all us Macross fans.
And you go by Captain. Are you Captain America?
I am.
Yes. Okay. I thought so. I'm on there, but I don't post a lot. But I mean, it's such a valuable community and reference for us Macross fans. That's cool. So yeah, tell us a bit more about how it's going for getting your new release out there.
Well, it's going very well, and pretty much everything has been pre-sold. So now that the kit is just about to start being shipped, there's probably going to be some more interest later on. But I guess you'd want me to talk a little bit more about the planning process.
Mm-hmm.
Of how the garage kit comes into being.
Yeah, sure. If you'd like, that'd be great.
Well, let's see. The first thing is, in this particular case, I was approached by a client who really, really wanted this done as a resin kit.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we had a little bit of back and forth discussion on, how, what scale are you comfortable with? What sort of details do you want? And, we work out a price based on the specifics. And the hard part then comes in terms of finding good reference, because as you know, something like that ship, there are maybe like 3 views of it, maybe 4, and they're hand-drawn, and they are completely inconsistent with each other.
Yeah, they're very fluid when they do the sketches, right? Like the line drawing. And then when they animate it, it's fluid again.
So basically what you have to do is once you work out the scale, and even that's a bit tricky because depending on what source you're using, there are different dimensional values for the ship. So is it one or is it the other? So based on that, I will look at the illustrations and I'll say, okay, based on the size of, let's say, a battle pod, this thing would have to be at least this big.
Okay.
And that's another thing that's probably particular for me, is that I don't tend to go so much for numerical values when it comes to a mecha. I'm very proportional. So I'll look at, let's say, the pilot, or in this case, the battle pod, and I tell myself, okay, well, it's going to fit at least this many, and it's going to fit through the door. So that means the ship has to be at least this big.
Yeah. So certain things dictate your scaling and your dimensions. Yeah. And I think just for our listeners, in science fiction, maybe you're not familiar with this, but we often have like an animation magic, right? Where you have a robot that is a jet and it also transforms into an airplane that's like an F-15 Eagle. Well, to make that work, they sort of play with proportions to make it look a certain way. Mm-hmm. And they have a lot of inconsistencies like John was mentioning, but so as kit producers and model builders on the other end, I think we're all striving for like a believability, and John's trying to build that into his kits, right? So yeah, remember when Minmay was in the cockpit of the VF1 with Rick? But if you look at other pictures, like Rick can't move his head left or right. It's a cockpit's so tight you can't.
We call it creative license.
Creative license for sure. We like to call it the animation magic, right? But sorry, yeah, please continue on about that process.
Well, so that creative license, as you like to call it, does create some very interesting problems. So you end up having to take all these different views of the mecha or the ship and sort of harmonize them. And sometimes that's easier said than done, because there are literally details that completely contradict each other.
Right. And you have to sort of reconcile which is more important for the feel of the design.
Yes, and that's not something that I can distill to an algorithm. It's just it's a gut feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to really commend you, because I've seen a lot like your Destroid kits from a number of years back. They really do capture proportion, and that's sometimes one of the problems that especially older official license kits or whatever coming out from Bandai, that they never captured the proportion like Gundam, Macross. They were really brutal.
I remember when I was looking at some of your Instagram feed and some of the other stuff and the Destroid kits, that again they just brought back so many memories.
Yeah.
When I was just a wee lad watching Battletech and all those other ones.
Yeah, Robotech, right?
Robotech. Yeah.
Battletech was
same an RPG, similar thing, yes, RPG. That's why I played that a lot.
Yeah.
But it was just like the colors, that color blue, and just the certain way it just brings it back.
Yeah,
and you've been able to bring those memories back really well.
Yeah, so kudos on capturing it.
In fairness, there were some very good line drawings, front, side, and back view of the Destroid, so that actually made it a lot easier.
Oh, that's cool. Were you going back to some of the original? I'm looking at my bookshelf here, like the Perfect Memory books, or like the older model magazines that came out of like 80s Japan? Was that where reference came from?
I have those in my collection. Those are must-haves.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, there's that.
Another surprisingly good source of visuals is the old role-playing games from Palladium Books.
Oh, I do remember those. Yeah.
Because
that's cool.
Usually they have pretty enlarged versions of those views. So that makes it a lot easier. But now that everything's online, you can find it digitized. It's that much easier.
That's cool. Yeah, but it must have been harder for you starting out kind of in the 90s, when pre-internet era, trying to source all these kind of references together. I was in Japan in 2000, 2008, and I hunted down a lot of those books. Those first two Macross modeling guides that were from the early 80s, and so I imagine it was even harder in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the 90s, I was still honing my skills.
Yeah.
But the only way that we could get our hands on those was through friends that we knew that would visit, Japan or Asia.
Yeah.
And we'd tell them, can you bring these books back for us, please? We'll pay you. There was, I think it still exists. There's a local place around here that started getting, back in the 90s, early 90s, they would get Hobby Japan model graphics and a few of the magazines from the time. And of course they were, vastly overpriced, but back then you didn't really have much of a choice. It was either this or nothing.
Yeah, I remember paying like $25 for an issue of Hobby Japan. It was like the single Hobby Japan in my comic book in the magazine section, and it's just been sitting there forever. And I like had to save up the money because I was like, didn't have a job.
It was very much like that through all various hobbies. Now, my wife still sometimes spends an obscene amount for a particular magazine or whatever.
It's just out of print or rare, hard to get. Yeah, that's great.
All right.
But that was an outlet that allowed, you know, some of that Japanese animation stuff to trickle out.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess our next follow-up question there is, so at a certain point you're doing all this different stuff or whatever, and then you want to get into the business side. So tell us about the challenges of kind of trying to, you know, make some money at this, or to get started. Any challenges that you recall from that time?
Well, I had what I could call it an aborted start, which was the 1/32 scale Buster, i.e. the Legios. Then there was the second start, which was the Valkyrie booster. So maybe one dovetails into the other. They kind of do, because what happened is in 2001, I just come back from a business meeting in Los Angeles. And I didn't have too much on my plate, so I figured, you know, now that I've got all these skills that I've accumulated over the years, there's this mecha that I've always wanted since I was a little kid, and the plastic models were just junk.
Yeah.
Since I have the skills now, why don't I just make my own Legios in 1/32 scale, which no one is ever going to tackle?
Mm-hmm.
I'll make it the way I want to make it, and that's what I started doing. And I was browsing on the internet, and I found Macross World, but not the forums. It was the mother site.
Yes, yeah, and it's changed, I think, since, right?
Oh, of course,
drastically.
Evolution. But Sean and Graham were the guys that had this repository of great Macross stuff, and I figured, well, you know, Mosquito's, you know, sort of a slightly distant cousin to Macross.
Mm-hmm.
And so on a whim, I sent Sean a few pictures of the Legios, what I had done so far, which is basically just the head. And I said, I don't know if, you know, this would be interesting to you, but I've started working on this project, you know, just for fun, and I thought I'd share. And I got a very, very enthusiastic response back. And he said, yeah, you know, send me more pictures. And at this point, I'm still completely oblivious to the forums. And so I'm working on this model, and every once in a while I would send pictures to Sean. Mm-hmm. And this one time he answers me back and he says, you know, John, you really ought to get on the forums. People are talking about you. And I'm like, cool. Talking about me what? Well, your Legios is creating quite a stir. Mm-hmm. So it's like, oh, that's interesting. So I went onto the forums, and sure enough, a lot of people had started paying attention to this little side project of mine.
Cool.
And I originally had intended, this was I started in 2001, but I think it started to get momentum, let's say in 2002. And I was maybe 3/4 into the build. And Sean, I think in his enthusiasm, had put stuff up on the main page.
Okay, I remember that.
And I think it had attracted the attention of a certain legal entity whose name we will.
Oopsie. Yeah. You know you're good when.
Really?
So the next thing I know, I get an email from this legal entity and its representative saying that you know, these pictures have got to come down now. And to their credit, they were actually really, really cool about the whole thing. That's like there was no intimidation, there was no threatening behavior. They were actually very, very nice to me. And I talked to them over the phone, and they explained the situation. And I said, okay, yeah, you know, that totally makes sense. You know, my bad. And I took down the pics, and that kind of put the project into limbo. Let's call it that. And so the pictures were still out there. They were still on the forums.
Oh, yeah.
I think at this point, Rob Watson had been following the project. and he had the idea to make the Valkyrie booster. And so he approached me. He says, I saw the work that you did on Legos, and he says, that's really nice. You think you'd be able to do something like this for Macross? And I said, yeah, sure, why not? And so he pitched me that project, and I said, how much would it cost for me to pay you to do this resin kit? And so we worked on a figure, and I started working straight away.
Oh, cool.
And,
so, and I know you came back, right, to the I want to say Legios, the Legios project. Is that correct?
I did.
Yeah.
I actually completed it in, I think, end of 2010 into 2011.
Okay, so a decade. That's not bad. So sorry, back to your story. So you've been contacted, and now you're planning the booster out.
And if it hadn't been for Rob, I probably would have, not been making garage kits for a long, long time, because my impression was that if I try to do something, without getting licenses, I'm just going to get shut down, and there's no point. But this ended up creating a kind of crowdfunding before there was crowdfunding, if you will.
Yes. Yeah.
Because Rob bankrolled the Masters. And I told him, the best thing to do is, talk to the people on the forum who are seeing this, who are really interested, and, see if you can get a bunch of people together, and, they'll send you money and you send them a kit. Nice and simple.
And did it work out that way for you?
It did. And it was a phenomenal start to my career as a kit builder. It was a really popular model. It's still popular to this day.
Yeah.
There are a number of, bootleg castings floating around.
Oh, for real?
It's funny because there was someone. It wasn't this kit. It was actually the Regult, the cockpit Regult.
Okay. Yeah.
And someone had built that from. You had to see this thing. He posted pictures of like the bear kit. It was a bootleg from, I think, Indonesia, and it's just god awful. And I think he was expecting to get chewed out or something. I said, you know what? You were brave enough to build that kit from that. I absolve you of your sins, my son. Go forth and sin no more.
Awesome. So is there a particular moment that stands out as the most memorable in your hobby career?
Hobby career.
Maybe a certain project that maybe you're very proud of, or?
Well, to this day, I think people still remember me for that 1/32 scale Legos.
Yeah, I do.
It's pretty big.
I remember those pictures being up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, because I had a picture of a soda can next to it, and you can see it's a good 14, 15 inches tall.
Yeah, that's very impressive scale,
well,
right?
I'm an aircraft and an armor modeler, and the diorama possibilities just starts springing to mind.
Yeah, I love putting figures with my mecha to show the audience and the viewer like some sense of scale, right? So that's a 30-second scale would be just fantastic.
Yeah. Anthony made sure he showed me the picture from the Instagram, and it's just absolutely.
We scroll down to
gorgeous.
one of your sort of your in progress pics from that one.
Yeah.
So if we forward, I'm gonna go off a little bit track.
Sure.
If we fast forward 10 years, you come back to the Legios project. So what was that like for you?
That was terrifying. Because I realized that when the project had been aborted the first time, it was it's almost like I had dodged a bullet, because I had made this thing so big and so complex that I never really thought it through to the point where you're going to have to cast all these several hundred pieces of
10 pounds in resin.
And it was not only resin, there had to be joints. And when I originally started the kit going, I wanted to have white metal joints that would have like ball and socket, but that you would have like a screw with a nut through the socket so that you could tension adjust the joints.
Oh wow! Yes. Okay.
And
no problem whatsoever.
None, absolutely none. except that trying to find someone who could do like good quality white metal casting is like pulling teeth. And
Wow.
so that was one of the things that that was starting to be problematic. However, technology had come along to the point where you could do 3D printed joints that were in some ways superior to metal because they were much, much lighter.
Yep.
Wow,
And
very
they had,
cool.
like, very, very strong plastic. I was quite surprised. And that's part of what ended up saving that project. It was
Cool. Now, can I ask? Did you run into the sort of cease and desist issues again, or like how do you navigate around that stuff?
Well, it's how can I explain this? I learned that there are some things that'll get you in trouble and some things that will sort of keep you out of trouble.
Yeah.
So basically, don't use any trademark names. Don't use any trademark logos. Anything of that nature, just, that belongs to its respective owner, respect it, leave it alone. So just, give it another name, a little bit like what you see with third-party transformers.
Right.
And, just roll it along that way. And it's not like they don't know who I am and they don't know where I am. If they want to talk to me, they know perfectly well I'm available 24/7. So I think, maybe it's something of a tacit understanding that I'm not going to, wag it in your face, so to speak. And as long as it doesn't interfere with any of their licensed projects, they just leave me alone.
And I think that's a good way to do it, because in the end, I think it ultimately helps both sides. Because if someone sees one of your products and then starts, oh, let me see some other ones from the same universe of this, and then they'll start, going that direction. So I think it's a good working understanding.
Right, because I mean, look, you take something like the Party Wagon, which is a drop ship of sorts, and let's come to the understanding that no licensor is going to touch that as a project, especially not in that size.
No.
As a collectible or as a plastic model kit.
Yep.
So if anything, I'm helping to perpetuate their memory of this.
Absolutely.
This bygone series, which still lives in the hearts and minds of the fans.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if anything, it probably helps to encourage the production of certain projects that they never really thought were viable.
Absolutely. I was going to make that point that it just helps to perpetuate and to spread the love and encourage the fandom to I've never understood why. Well, I mean, you do understand, like Star Trek, for example, Star Wars. Those are two big licenses where they're very hard on the fan community that try to produce any they
can be
stuff.
It changed. It's funny how on the Star Trek side it's changed slightly, but it's still very similar ideas, like don't use original names and stuff like that.
But these people are doing this stuff out of passion and dedication. They should be almost helping them, right?
Exactly.
Like in my opinion, because it would lead to more profits and popularity, whatever.
You've got to look at this from the licensor's perspective too, is that they have this intellectual property
they want control over it.
That, licensees pay big money for.
Yes.
And that if they allow this, these trademark names or what have you to be used with impunity and they don't defend that. That create a very dangerous precedent by where they could end up losing control of their intellectual property completely.
Absolutely.
I never blame them for trying to enforce it. Sometimes they perhaps do it very, how shall we say, zealously.
Yeah, for sure.
But I completely understand where they're coming from. So my philosophy is just don't step on anybody's toes when you're doing it.
And that seems to have been working fairly well for you, because you've been producing these beautiful kits for a number of years now, and they're definitely kind of the highlights of my collection for sure.
And if I could interject just a little bit,
of course,
I could be completely wrong on this, but when I ended up doing the 1/12 scale motorcycle freak accessories set, I was very surprised and happy to see Sentinel when they announced the Blow Superior. they announced that they would be including saddle packs and rifles with the next figure, almost as if they were paying attention and they saw that a certain somebody came up with a good idea, and now they could incorporate this into their next release.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I'm not fully up to date on that. Did they mimic the accessories that came in your Blow Spear kit with their own, or did they make it sort of work together?
No, they. It's because the first two releases from the series, the two VR 052 Mosquitas, didn't have any saddle packs or.
Oh, okay. So you got like the figure, the rider, and then you got the ride armor.
Well,
it's called.
The saddle packs were like a resin kit along with like a rocket launcher.
Yes, I remember seeing your kit, and then the company that released was it a toy or was it a model?
That's a toy.
Okay, and then your kit accessorizes that particular sort of toy release, right?
Correct.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, Blow Spear is the name of the original name, and Ride Armor I think is from Robotech.
I remember like Alpha Cycles and stuff like that. It would convert to an armor. This is different, but similar.
Well,
the
original property is Mosquita,
right?
And I take it, John, you're a big Mosquita fan.
Well, that was, I think, maybe slightly more influential on me than Macross.
Oh, interesting. See, I had the reverse. I was like really drawn to the Macross section. I mean, I always loved the whole thing as Robotech. I enjoyed the separate pieces. Just for our listeners to clarify, if you remember Robotech in the 80s, if you were a kid in that time or a science fiction fan, you probably would remember that series. An American producer named Carl Macek he was working on licensing agreements, and he was able to grab these three different shows, but they were produced by a lot of the same staff, so they kind of had similar look and production style. And he came up with his own story and then merged them together to make three different chapters in one long. And it's but the original stuff is even more brilliant, right? They're separate series. Yeah, it's quite ingenious how he kind of stitched them together, but he really changed it into something else. So that's why I'm mixing up some of the terminology here.
Well, I think they kind of had to do that because during that particular time in the States, you had to have a minimum number of episodes.
Yes.
And any one of those series alone would not have been sufficient to get.
They were like, what, 30, 31 or
something like that.
So episodes? Yeah.
Macross had 36. I think Mosquita has like 24, 25. And things similar for Southern Cross.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But no, it was June because I didn't find that out until much later. That they were three separate, because they had a lot of similarities. Yeah, and just the way he wrote
design
it,
style,
different timelines and all that. So
it makes a lot of sense.
It worked out well.
Yeah. So what are you seeing right now as sort of the biggest change in the garage kit industry and even the larger hobby industry?
Well, I think you touched on this in one of your last podcasts, and the argument was that, from some people at least, was that the hobby is dying. And you came back with, no, the hobby is changing. And I think that is very much on point. Because whereas, kits had a certain quality level, 20, 30 years ago, they've gotten much better now. And there are way more kits being released now than at any other time that I can think of.
Yeah, but in smaller number. Would you agree?
I don't even know about that because it's just so diversified.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I assume that
it does, and we've talked about this before. How certain markets and certain areas, like a Bandai release,
is huge in numbers.
Yeah, like in North America and Europe, people do not realize how huge the numbers are. Like when Bandai releases some new Gundams and stuff like
Star Wars, they're probably pumping out really high numbers.
Where traditional stuff probably a lot less of a run, and it's difficult to get those because those numbers are often highly proprietary.
Yes.
But it is, and this is where one of the reasons I started this podcast was to make people aware of that.
We want to know how many kits are being made.
But there's also the hobby's changing. It's not, it's evolving. I think a lot more people are aware of Bandai now, not just because of their Gundam, but because of their amazing Star Wars kits.
Yeah.
That's where the North Americans and European modelers are starting to realize, wow, there's all this. This other stuff.
Bandai started out with like military, like World War II era German armor kits. Isn't that funny?
Yeah. But it's interesting to see. So just a little bit of a segue, because you already answered a little bit about do you think the hobby's dying? Where do you see the hobby in 5 to 10 years?
Boy, that's tough.
I know. I just best guess. I ask this to everyone.
It's hard to answer because obviously I don't have a crystal ball, and things can change really quickly.
Where do you see it going?
Well, I think it's probably going to continue on the path that it's on until it meets an immovable object, and then it's going to adapt, as any industry does. The move that I've seen is that third-party manufacturers are much more prevalent than they used to be.
Yes.
In that when we were young, we used to get the kit, and we used to build the kit as it was in the box. And if you did any scratch building, it was, very minimal. Maybe you drilled out a few gun barrels here and there. But now you've got photo etch, you've got resin, and 3D printing has also ushered in certain things. But, I was asked about 3D printing a while back, and it still has a lot of limitations, I can tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, it still does.
Well, in terms of the size of the pieces that you want made. Like a perfect example on the party wagon kit that I just completed a while back. I actually had the hulls 3D printed because I could not turn saucer plates that large on the lathe.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I had those 3D printed, and I would have liked their best level of detail, but because of the size of the parts, I had to contend with their lowest resolution printing, and holy cow, did I have to put a lot of elbow grease into those to get those smooth.
Yeah.
Are you referring to like the master or all the production copies for the kits?
No, I'm talking about the masters.
Okay, master.
He 3D prints the master mold.
Oh my goodness! So you had to just polish that sort of a disc, saucer shaped disc. You had to polish that down to get it ready for molding.
I had to use 80 grit sandpaper to get all the texture off.
Yeah.
Go over it with about 4 or 5 layers of primer and wet sanding.
Right.
Wowza.
Right. Yeah, we're just looking at a picture on your Facebook page of some of the latest pictures when you're doing one of the assembly with the upper hull, and you can definitely see that.
That would have been quite a lot of work to get there.
I mean, literally in scale, those things were like stair steps.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge. Like
Brutal.
I said, yeah, quite an interesting beast.
So can I wanted to ask you another number. Like, since we are quite interested in the numbers, are you able to recall some of the runs that have come out of your designs, like the booster? Would you have any idea how many of those were popped out?
From my end, because what ended up happening is I initially did a series of molds here, and I popped out a few kits. But then I sent the masters back to Rob, and he sent them to another caster.
Oh, okay. So then you started to lose track a little bit.
Yeah. But it can vary wildly. And this is something that I try to bring up with customers too, because when they come to me and they want a specific model, and you realize that it's in the thousands of dollars to produce masters for these things. It's a lot.
Yeah. Yes.
And I tell them, do you still want to do this if, let's say, nobody is interested in getting a kit? Because that's kind of important, because if there's nobody that wants the kit to offset the cost of the masters,
it's a very expensive project.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now that kind of leads me just to another interesting change that I've noticed, and I wonder if this is working out for you well. But instead of sort of taking a shot in the dark, saying, "Hey, you know what? I really love the booster. I find a guy like John to make me a pastor or a master, and then I find a resin caster, and we do all this stuff, and then nobody buys it because no one's ever seen it." You sounds like you've been using the idea. You say you put it out there on a forum, let's say, and hey, is there any interest to get
Or like a Kickstarter concept.
yeah, a 1/72nd, Comanchero helicopter or something like that, and then you get pre-orders. So is that a sort of a system that you've adopted in like the last kind of decade?
I've been doing that almost since the beginning.
Oh, okay.
And it was a little bit more challenging at first, and I'll give you a perfect example of how something like that goes. See, the booster was different because that was entirely funded by Rob.
Yeah.
So the sculpting and mold making, that was covered. When you're doing it yourself, you have to pitch the project, and if you don't have much of a track record, you can understand why some people will say, you know what, it's a really interesting project, but we don't know what you're capable of.
Yeah, right.
So we're gonna have to pass.
Yeah.
And this issue came up when I was doing the Regult, I think circa 2005.
Okay.
Because, as you know, there were already some plastic kits of the Regult on the market.
Yep.
And so when I was pitching the project, someone brought this up in the forum as a very legit question. Said, you're charging, let's say it was 125 US or more. Why should we pay this much for your kit when there's already something that made out of plastic on the market for like $75?
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you know what? Don't order yet. Let me show you what I can do, and then you can decide if you want to get it or not. So you gotta. There's no way around it. You've got to dazzle people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think in some ways this sort of concept it does help both sides, because you get more of a certainty. You'll know what the market's looking for, and if there is market demand for it.
Right. And at this point, I think I've got enough of a reputation where I can pretty much throw out a project and I'll know, even without starting, if it's going to be successful or not.
Right.
So, I think they know my track record, and they know that I'm fairly respectful of the line art and the source material. So if I do something, it's not going to be some hideous chud.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, John, we're just getting to the end of our interview session with you, and we want to know. We have two questions. I'm going to merge this into two questions. The first one. Yeah. No, I'm going to throw in a little surprise.
Anthony's he's on a roll today, John.
Yeah. We want to know what is currently on your bench, and we also want to know, can you drop us any tidbits of any cool future projects so we can say that you heard it here first? It's a two-parter.
It's funny that you should ask that question, because, it's not so much of a secret, but I will be reissuing the Motorcycle Freak accessories set in September.
Cool. Yeah.
So
awesome.
That I've already put the word out, but I'm making it official that it's going to be reissued.
Heard it here first, listeners. It's official. That's really great.
And more interestingly, perhaps, earlier in my career, I was known as a mecha designer. And for, a long, long time, I sort of let that slide. I was doing other people's stuff. And right now on the workbench, there are plans for me to come back with my own mecha designs.
Awesome. Very cool. So something completely unique. Are you going to build sort of a world for it as well, or just kind of just go for some raw design and see what happens?
There's a design. There's a little bit of world building. It's not super intensely detailed, but there is a backstory for it.
Nice.
And I don't know how that's going to be received, but it's definitely on the workbench, and hopefully before the year's out, I'll have something to show.
Wow, awesome. Well, feel free, once you get a bit further along, feel free to let us know, and we'll be happy to plug it for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's wonderful. Well, we want to thank you very much for coming on to the the model scale model podcast. It's been a real pleasure to chat with you, and I'm definitely a fan of your work. So if anyone remembers Robotech or Macross or likes Japanese animation stuff, you gotta hunt down one of the Moscato kits. They are just fantastic.
And I'm gonna start bugging Anthony. He's got to get one of those built, because if he
I'm
does, then I
scared
may scoop one.
I'm almost scared to touch them because I only have one.
I don't know. You got two different kits, all right?
Well, I'd feel a lot better if I had duplicates.
I know. I'm just saying.
So they're going to be great. They're going to be great fun.
A pleasure to talk to you, John.
Likewise, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to talking to you guys again.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, and as I said, that was a great interview. It went long, as our interviews seem to do.
Because they're packed full of informative and fun goodness.
Exactly. Yeah. So, all right, let's move on to our regular feature now, Talking Tools.
Talking Tools.
And we're going to talk about, this is something I see now and again. It pops up. I see it a lot in the model railroading world, but it's also something that can be just as applicable.
Yeah.
And that's those...
This is deeper level modeling here.
Machinist blocks.
Machinist blocks. 1, 2, 3 blocks.
You have a set.
I do. You want to borrow them?
Oh, well, sometime I will.
You should take them.
Yeah, sometime I will.
So, okay, you might have heard this, this term kicked around, but not know kind of what they're for, what they do. But they really are for like tradesmen, machinists, and the blocks are actually they're made out of like steel, and their precision. It's actually 1 inch by 2 inches by 3 inches, and they're perfect.
So accurate.
It's meant to be a precise measuring tool, so that when machinists are working on like a drill or like a milling machine, they can bolt these things down and use them like to create jigs for things. But they have so many applications. That's why they have holes in them, because they're bolted to the table.
I was wondering about
on like a milling machine, drill press.
Yeah, okay, makes sense. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah.
So they have tons of applications for model builders, and I heard this from like more advanced guys who are really deep into it, and so that tickled my interest for sure. But I have a pair of them. They're typically, I'm going to say, about $30, and you'd find them at like a Busy Bee or like a tool shop. Not really a model shop.
Like a specialty tool
Lee
shop.
Valley, maybe.
Maybe.
These are Canadian brands, but...
I know Busy Bee carries them.
Yeah. So, and they're quite heavy, and like I said, they actually are perfect dimensions. And so what I've used them for is, certainly with the super sanding blocks, the super sanding blocks are flat and rigid, you can butt them up against a machinist block, and then you create a 90-degree plane. So now if you wanted to make a part and have it perfect 90 degrees,
yeah. And we've actually taken a picture of that. We're going to put it up on the website.
And you can actually you could say grab some clamps and clamp one of these things to your workbench to get something solid to work on. I use them all the time for even in assembling kits. If you have like something with 2 booms or wings and you want them at the same height, you can set these up.
And you know they're going to be exactly the same.
And then when
height.
you set your thing to glue and you prop them in that, you've got the same height.
So like a jig.
Exactly, but it's customizable. You can move it around. It you can flip them so it's 2 inches.
Well, I always remember hearing about these because the model railroad guys would use them when they're making buildings. Yes. When they want to do a precise 90-degree connecting 2 walls together.
Yeah, you're gluing your thing.
And they want a precise 90-degree. Because I know some people would use a square, but this gives you it's a bigger.
It's
thing.
more dimensional,
more dimensional. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So I know what you're saying. You would glue your building. You'd have one on the inside and one on the out, and you press it together, and they're heavy, so it kind of helps.
It would kind of help you hold it. You get a precise 90-degree.
Yeah. I use it actually even to weight things down sometimes.
They're a good weight.
Think of a good.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. It's something that's been on my at some point I'll get list for a while. Yeah. So it's a good thing we're talking about.
But they're handy. I definitely take them out once in a while. And I'm glad I have them. They were a good kind of investment, and they're kind of a cool thing. Like it's a real tool. So I obviously enjoy. The realness of it.
And I think like anything else you mentioned, it's a good investment. I think it's worth spending the good money because it'll last your lifetime.
Oh yeah, these things will.
Yeah, it's worth the extra couple of bucks.
These are vintage. I actually got these instead of from a tool shop. I got them used from like a pawn shop, maybe in a collection of milling stuff or whatever. But so a good deal. But I have a couple other weird shapes too, like a a V block, so you can
Oh
put
yeah,
like a
for different
cylinder in
Yep,
it.
yep,
right?
exactly. Yeah, I see. If I just have a very quick peek at even Amazon,
Yeah.
there's all sorts of different sizes and types. They have brass sets, gauge blocks, like some of this other stuff too from machine milling.
These are all
Like gauge sets and stuff like that.
height gauges. That's
You
on
may
my
find,
list.
yeah, you may find handy.
The ship built. So the height gauge has like a very sharp sort of indicator, and I know a lot of guys, and it's heavy and flat, and you can change. So you can change the height of this little scriber. It's essentially a scriber. So the ship modelers will use that
They
to
like
set the
that.
gauge
Yep.
and then like bring the bow along to
or
to
like
make,
scribe the water line
yes,
or
exactly.
whatever.
Or if you have to cut something apart,
Yeah.
you make yourself a guideline, right?
Yeah, I'm
Here's
just
another example.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just looking here. Like Busy Bee has them from like 25 and up.
There you go. Yeah. So
for
that's kind
example. So there's all sorts of different ones, but as you say, there's different, V blocks they have here.
so you can put a cylinder inside a V block, right?
Right.
So that's if you're
Milling's a whole other we've
Yeah.
seen some like who did we talk about a few weeks ago? Scale Model Workshop.
Paul Budzig.
Yeah, he has a milling machine and
he
he
would be
uses
using
stuff
these
like
tools.
this.
Yeah,
it's
he uses
fascinating.
tools.
It obviously, depending what you use it for, can take your hobby in a really new dimension.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Paul was doing. He was like milling from brass, like landing gear that
Yep.
was correct.
Yep. Yeah.
And so he's using a lathe, a drill press, like a drill press to make holes, a lathe to make like tubes,
Right.
and then he would be using a couple of maybe some small saws to make other like flat
Exactly.
plates.
Well, and again, this has been something like, because I know the model railroad guys, especially the guys who make their own model steam engines,
Oh, yeah.
would use a lot of. And again,
Yeah.
that's a whole other
It's cool. It's
aspect
neat.
that blows me away with some of the skill of those guys.
Oh, for sure.
who
And
work with
I'm sure
metal.
there's a lot more uses that
Yep.
could be applied from
Yep.
these, and I'd like to get more into them. But yeah, they're neat, and I like having them around. They're definitely
Just
very
don't drop
handy.
them from a height on your foot.
Yes,
Or on your kit.
or on a model. 'Cause
Let's avoid that.
Yeah, that
there
would
will be crying
smushed.
if that happens.
There would be tears.
Yeah. So anyway, I've posted a link in the show notes just to
Yeah.
some Google images, and we'll also post a couple of things on the show note gallery, like we always do,
Yeah.
indicating what those are. Okay, moving on. What's on the bench? Well,
What are you working on, Stu?
I finally had time. I was telling you pre-show, I haven't touched that Spitfire kit, I guess, in at least 3 weeks, and I hadn't airbrushed in several months, but it's making some progress. I worked on the landing gear
Good.
last night. I've got a little bit of time doing that. Haven't touched the tune tank. I'm hoping to do that, but it's coming together.
Excellent.
So yeah,
One thing at a time.
we're past the fiddly photo etch now.
Yeah.
So now we're on the part I like. We're almost ready for painting, and I do enjoy painting.
That is the fun part, right?
I like the painting. Decaling, no, but I do enjoy the painting because you really see it coming together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how about you?
I've been having a great run. I gotta say, we haven't really talked about Mr. Michael Rinaldi before.
No, we haven't.
But I am right into Mr. Rinaldi's techniques right now. So I am a one-track guy. I'm still working on the APC, and I've been working on Mike Rinaldi calls it oil paint rendering, and he's got a whole philosophy. I watched a couple of his live demonstrations. One video he did with Dave Brown of Hornet Hobbies, and another one from a different show, and it's really cool. And I think this might appeal to a lot of people because he's trying to get you to to use oil paints to weather your model, to give it tonal variation. And it's in such a way that you're not using a lot of harsh chemicals. There's a lot of talk about, like, when you're spraying paint, it doesn't matter if it's acrylic.
It doesn't matter what it is.
You're atomizing a chemical and you're sucking it in your lungs.
This is why I use a spray booth and a mask no matter what.
And a lot of people find that those two things are like cost prohibitive, or they're too awkward and they don't do it.
But it's safety.
Yeah.
You got it. It's part
So
of the hobby.
he's got this thing, like he likes the Mission model paints, and I think he had a hand in developing them. I
that's
gotta
good.
get Mr. Rinaldi on. I'm working on it.
We're working on that. So you've been working on that?
Yeah, so I've been using the oil paints kind of according to his oil paint rendering technique, and it uses dry brushing, and it's been really fun and really satisfying. Like, I'm painting my model with a brush.
Good.
It's cool. It's really good. So it's done, and I just need to add a bit of weathering. I'm trying to figure out what that's gonna look like, and then I'm on to the Musaru Cup, and I read a great article in the Tamiya it was an international modeling magazine.
Okay, yeah.
About a guy going through a process for like a little Italian rally car.
Oh,
no,
neat.
sorry, French rally car.
Okay.
And that really helped me. I'll have to buzz that.
Well, and you're
article
also
out.
and you're also getting some good advice from the guys down under. And
Yeah.
on
Oh,
the
yeah.
bench and-
Ian's been a huge resource in particular. He's.
Yep,
I ask him
exactly.
anything about cars. He
That's
gives me
great.
a great answer. So I'm getting close to painting that body,
Good.
and that's going to be fun. But I just want to make sure I know kind of what I should be doing because it's sort of a new
Well,
process for me.
that's going to be nice. Yes, because I know they blasted through their Gundam model down there. That's because they have more time than we do, I guess. I don't know.
Wow. They had a beautifully engineered kit that
That's
practically
true.
built
That's
itself.
true. That's true. Exactly.
The kit I'm working on is a bit more
We're
challenging.
have a little bit more challenge.
The
there.
hubs are done. I got
Exactly.
the wheels
Awesome.
are done.
Awesome.
Right? And then
so that's good.
Just getting a little work on the body, and then I'm looking forward to painting it because I think that's
Yeah.
kind of the fun of the cars is when
Yeah.
you get that body color put on and it's shiny and nice and
Exactly. I think it's going to look good.
yeah.
Okay, sites and tips. We're gonna go to one to Facebook because out of Europe, there's a group or a user called Mr. Hobby. It's actually a group. Mr. Hobby GSI Europe Hobby Department. So the European distribution point for Mr. Hobby Products project. And
This is run by Katayama-san.
right. So he says I was in charge of Europe when he was in Japan, and now he's at the German branch for 9 months. And he's been really giving some good little general introductions about some of their paint thinners and how they work. And you were kind of
amazing.
blown away.
Yeah, you know what? I'm a
you didn't
huge
know about
Mr.
this?
Hobby fan.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been using this stuff for a while, and we luckily got a distributor in London at Neo Tokyo, which sells like Gundam models and
all
other stuff.
sorts.
But
So, yeah, you can get them there.
they got this paint because a lot of people talk about they love that paint. I could get it in Toronto, but we never go there.
A shout out to them.
Yeah.
Now they're more of a lacquer paint, right? Mr. Color's the lacquer.
Mr. Color's a lacquer base. They also
Right.
had the Mr. Hobby Aqueous, which I know you mentioned.
Which is
enjoying.
apparently they're going to be reformulating it.
Yeah.
And you're going to be able to get it into North America at some point.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that
I
when
think you can get that
when it
from,
gets closer.
from Neo Tokyo
Yeah.
in London.
Yeah, there's some of the older stuff you can.
Yeah.
But this apparently it's been really tough to get in.
Maybe they're
especially in the States.
having new colors and stuff available.
Yeah, no, apparently they're reformulating to make it safer. But that's a topic for another
Yeah.
time. So tell us about your discovery.
Okay, so on this Facebook page that Katayama-san is obviously populating with information, he was discussing some of the different thinners and some of the different stuff they have. And I didn't know this, but there's a Mr. Color Rapid Thinner.
Yes.
And I had not heard of this. I'm going to have to order some up. And he recommends you're supposed to use that on any flat colors.
Interesting.
Well, isn't that interesting? Because I've been using Mr. Color Leveling Thinner, and I'm sure we've talked about that. It's very popular. People love it, and it is awesome. But apparently that was really designed for the using with gloss paints because there's a regular Mr. Color Thinner, and then the Mr. Color Leveling Thinner has a retarder.
As a retarder
So
built
it
in, and I've
lets
used that.
the gloss
Yeah, and that works with the Tamiya as
flow.
well.
Yeah. So I've been using Mr. Color Leveling Thinner with my Tamiya acrylic paints that are commonly available, with my Mr. Color lacquers, and with my Mr. Hobby Aqueous. So I think that the company is called Mr. Hobby, and then everything else is like a Mr. This. So it's like Mr. Color. This is
Mr.
lacquer.
Color, Mr. Tweezer, Mr. this, Mr. that.
And then they have Mr. Hobby Aqueous Hobby Color, which you mentioned.
Yeah, which is the lacquer,
Yeah.
more the acrylic base.
So for the past 5-6 years, I've been using that thinner almost exclusively. Like I have Tamiya thinner.
Well, and I love,
rarely touch it.
I always found, and people would recommend use the leveling thinner. I always
awesome.
found it for when I built my Porsche.
Yes.
I would use it to get that nice leveling quality on the gloss coats.
But I've been using it with matte paints, and they're saying, don't
Try something different.
try
yeah.
this rapid.
Yeah,
so
so
it dries quick.
And what's great about the pages, they've been talking about they talk about thinners, they've been talking about cements.
Yeah, this is
They
this is really illuminating.
And he's answering questions. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
So
And we did talk to Katayama-san, and we're going to. He agreed to answer some questions for us.
yeah,
so
and he's been
gonna-
very good about answering questions on the Facebook group. So I posted a link to the Facebook group on the show notes. So we do recommend you join it because you will learn a heck of a lot.
Yeah, this was really interesting. I'd absolutely learned a lot. He gets right kind of down into some technical details about using the products, and sometimes you don't know unless it's explained,
sometimes,
right?
yeah,
It's not always
sometimes.
obvious,
Well,
right?
as we talked about with like things like mission model paints, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes a good description, you have to know if the product's different, and that's what's awesome about it.
You need to know how are they meant to be used.
Yeah.
And certainly, like some of the stuff, this is very Japanese stuff, right? So
Yeah.
you're not getting an English.
Yeah, so this is
instruction
nice.
manual with
This
it.
is nice when you have that. So
Yeah, it's one.
Yeah,
And their products are great, and it really helps to know how they're meant to be used.
And I can see why you wouldn't want to use this on gloss paint, because with a gloss you normally want a nice leveling effect.
You want that
a
extra
slower
time
drying,
for it
to level out.
to
So I can see that. But
spread
for
evenly.
the rest of it, so you'll have to try it and let us know, because as I look there, he's got a shelf full of Mr. Color products.
I do.
And
Yeah, I love
Mr.
it.
Hobby products. Yeah, I think you've got all the. I see at least all the Mr. Surfacers there. You've got some of the other decal setting solutions, and you got a lot there.
I love that stuff.
Yeah, he
it's
loves
my
that
favorite.
stuff. Exactly. So
I'm trying to get one of every paint in the catalog. They have a whole Gundam line, which is
they
awesome.
do. Yeah. Well, and again, I'm just looking back through here. So apparently, we're talking about the Aqueous. Apparently, there's some more stuff going to be announced at the Tokyo Hobby Show in a month or two.
Cool.
So hopefully, we'll hear some more then, because that's something I'm looking forward to. Looks like they've got a screenshot of all the colors, but apparently, this is going to be. Apparently, a lot of the previous Aqueous line, they couldn't bring them to California.
Well, there's been there was new rules that came into play about 3 years ago.
Oh, at least,
4
because
years ago,
for a while
5
you
years
could
ago.
get it, and then all of a sudden it just
I
stopped.
used to buy Mr. Color paints right from Hobbylink Japan,
Yep.
and we'd send them in the mail. But there was new
rules,
international rules
yep.
regarding shipping like hazardous
Yeah,
materials.
and this apparently will they've now made it so they can ship it.
Yeah,
so
because
it's coming starting in Japan. Then it's going to be. They've specifically said North America,
that's wonderful.
which is great, because
that's
they
why
have
I
a
couldn't
lot
get
of
any of it.
they have a lot of ranges, which to me it doesn't quite cover. I like
Yes.
both.
Yeah.
I have both.
Did they ever
I've
show you the
used both
catalog?
products. Oh yeah,
I'll
I've
show
seen
the
the catalog.
catalog.
Yeah,
Yeah,
catalogs
it's
are
awesome.
amazing. And
They
again,
do
you've
some
got
really
links.
nice. They do some really nice sets too. I mean, I guess everyone does this where
Mm-hmm.
they put together a subject base. Like I have a really cool NATO set
Mm-hmm.
where you get the NATO black, the NATO green, and then the brown.
Right.
And they're so if you're doing your vehicles, boom, you've got a little set with everything in it. I don't know if you save any money, but they have like the World War II sets, like the RAF set,
Yeah.
the Luftwaffe set.
I'm just looking at one of the other charts here that he has. He talks about the Mr. Hobby brand hobby paints, all the different lacquer, the water-based, the oil-based. And then they talk about the water-based emulsion paint, the accretion they have.
Oh, that's a new one.
Yeah, that's strictly a water-based. And Anthony's just showing me here the color chart. Again, they've got so many amazing colors.
They also
Their
came up with
RAF interior green was very popular. I had tons of that.
I'll give you a bottle.
Oh no, I found it pretty. To me, is close enough. And this is
yeah.
the more I've realized.
they're
Again,
close.
that's my personal thing.
Yeah.
But for people who wanted it exact,
the aqueous and the Tamiya paints, like the acrylic, that have been staples, I think, for a lot of people for many years, were very similar.
yeah, exactly,
It's
and that's
when
what I
you-
loved.
I wanted to get into the lacquer based paint, and then Mr.
Yeah.
Color was sort of the current line.
And that was the one.
It does spray very
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, see, the Aqueous has a larger line than the water-based.
Yeah.
And again, that's
Or
supposed
than
to be
the
a
lacquer?
safer. Yeah, that's supposed to be a safer than the Aqueous. They still consider
Right.
Aqueous a hazardous base, but apparently,
'Cause
this
it's just
new one
certain
coming
materials
out.
in it.
Yeah, this new one coming out is going to be even safer.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. But we've covered some of the other stuff like the Mr. Paint Jar Opener and.
That's right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. So they also
Mr.
have
Capel.
another line or brand called GSI Krios.
Yes.
And we've mentioned that. And I think they're more on the tools, and they have airbrushes.
Yep,
like
they
the
have
Pro
airbrushes.
Convoy and
Yeah, apparently they're coming out with a couple of new airbrushes too. Apparently at the show. So Tokyo shows in October.
well, we're gonna have to keep our eyes
We'll
on
keep
that.
our eyes open because I love their stuff. They always got cool things.
Yeah, they have very like modeler tool stuff.
Yeah,
I
and
love
again, I know we've shout out to our friends at Neo Tokyo, but like they have the paint stand. They even have spray brush booths. So again, a lot of
Yeah.
stuff you can only get in Japan.
Brushes. They have their own pigments too. I've never come
everything
across them.
Yeah, but yeah, everything's called Mr. Stand.
Yeah, I love
Mr.
it.
Storage
It's
Box.
fun. It's very Japanese.
Mr. Spout. Mr. Metal Ball. Little metal balls,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Mr. Grinding Cloth Set. Mr. Vice.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh yeah, I love this stuff.
It's fun.
Everything. Like I say, you go to Japan, it's all there. Even a digital scale, Mr. Digital Scale.
So handy. I could use a scale.
Yeah.
Well, that's for doing like resin casting materials.
I guess, or if you want to
Yeah.
weigh, if you want to make sure you've got 50-50 paint to thinner, maybe I don't
suppose.
know.
Well, you gotta measure the rubber and stuff out, like when you're making
Mr.
little
Molding
molds and
block,
things.
yeah.
Yeah, that's that.
Yeah, there's some, and some of the airbrushes in there, and
Yeah,
all sorts of stuff. They even do air compressors in Japan and that, but they do a ton of different
yeah,
airbrushes.
it's pretty cool stuff.
But I have heard there is some more additional product coming out, so
Great.
We'll keep an eye from our friends at Mr. Hobby. So definitely check that Facebook group out.
Yeah,
I
it's
have
worthwhile.
I have put it on the show notes, so check that out. Okay, well I think we're done for now. So that's another probably close to 2-hour show.
Packed full of quality.
Packed full of quality. So as always, if you didn't get enough this week of your modeling, make sure to check out our friends at On the Bench.
Yep.
Down in
Always
Australia.
something interesting going
Always
on.
something good. They publish every 2 weeks. They tend to be the odd off 2 weeks that we do.
Yep.
And they're looking forward to spring down there, just as we're looking forward to fall.
Yep.
So yeah, good times there. Always interesting things. Apparently, they did get quite a bit of a hard time from other listeners, in addition to us, about model scale things. But they had a lot of fun with it. That's fine. That's fine. Again, as always, if we say something and we're completely out to lunch, we appreciate feedback as well.
It's good to hear. Everyone has something, some knowledge to add.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
some
Well, no, and there was
experience.
some of the email they got talked about gauges and stuff like that, which I'd forgot. We really didn't get into.
No, that's
So
right.
that was kind of good as well. So, okay, so don't forget to subscribe. Let us know if you have any comments or suggestions at scalemodelpodcast@gmail.com. We currently record bi-weekly, and it's available where all your podcasts are found: iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or even if you just want to listen from the webpage.
That's right.
A lot of people do it that way. Like and subscribe our Facebook page at facebook.com/Scale Model Podcast. And as we said, we do have the Patreon page, so feel free to contribute there. So that's it for this week. My name is Stuart Clark.
I'm Anthony Goodman.
Thank you, and be well.